Hi, welcome to the CUNY Counseling Center Developmental Disability Department. We are glad that you are finally on board with us. My name is Nikki Bouvier. I'm also known as Nicole. And this is Jim. Greg, he is the owner. I am currently a supervisor, and I'm going to help you through this onboarding process, through this video. Please continue to watch this video and follow the instructions. Thank you. At first, you will be able to do all the paperwork that is required for your employee file. You will need to sign these documents, and they have to be submitted in order to get paid. The first form that you will need to be doing is free from communicable disease statement.
Free form communicable disease statement. Okay.
You will be assigned to a key. And this key is available to open all doors of this building. It is your responsibility not to lose this key, and you need to sign this paper. The next thing is the employee handbook. This is for you to read on your own time. You do not have to read it here. But you will need to sign an acknowledgement form that you have received this handbook, and it is your responsibility to read this on your own time. Here is the employee handbook, acknowledgement, and agreement that you do need to fill out and sign. And remember that on the bottom it said a representative of developmental disability needs to sign on the bottom. That is one of the supervisors. That's either me or Don Hope. We also have a policies and procedure handbook acknowledgement and agreement. Again, please sign, and it does say it needs to be witnessed by one of the supervisors who is doing the onboarding process. It is required that you complete and pass a background check through the Department of Health and Welfare. If you've had the background check within the last 3 years, please let one of the supervisors know, and we will get that transferred over to you immediately. If you do not, or if you lived out of state and you need a new applicant, we will help you through the application process. And please be aware, it is a $65 charge, and you do need a notary to sign your paper to go through the application process. No worries, CUNY Counseling does pay for the $65 charge to get your background application process completed when you do the fingerprinting process through the Department of Health and Welfare. With that being said, I am a notary of this department. I will need you to be present in front of me while I notarize your documentation for you. When we do that, you will also need to fill out a requirement of report additional criminal conviction form. You do need to sign this as well as completing the onboard application process online.
One note on that, it is very helpful if you let them know that if you've had one within the past 3 years. There's a couple benefits. First of all, if you have that, we can transfer it so you don't have to go down to the Department of Health and Welfare and get fingerprinted and do all that stuff. We can just transfer it, and then we sign a form of transfer. We send that they do a recent criminal history check that doesn't go to the federal level. So, and it's also costs less and stuff like that. So, thanks.
The next thing that we are going to talk about is how you want to be paid. We do provide the option and the benefit of the automatic deposit directly to your bank account, or you can receive a check. If you are going to do the automatic deposit through your banking account, you will need to fill out this form. Now, you don't have to necessarily need to bring a voided check. as long as you provide the bank information, the city of your bank branch, the state and the zip code of your bank branch with your routing number and account number. And you do need to sign on the bottom of this. It is required that you fill out an additional base sheet for the employee information sheet. This is just to make sure that we have additional information in case we need to get a hold of you, or in case if something ever happened to you, we have your emergency contact and we can contact you. This is required for your file. Okay. Within the federal law, we have to have you submit a tax form. So you will need to fill out a W-4 form and the I-9 form, which is the employment eligibility verification form.
That one just basically lets the government know that you're here legally and can work legally.
Towards the end of the first onboarding process that we will be doing, you will be going through initial fire and safety training. This is basically where one of the supervisors who is doing the onboarding and orientation with you will give you a tour in this building and show you where all the emergency exits are and all the fire extinguishers, along with the building plan of where to exit if there happens to be a fire in this center. You need to fill this out and date it and when this training took place. This will be done on your first onboarding process. You will also be receiving initial ethics training as well on your first onboarding process. It's where we talk about the appropriate codes of ethics within our department, confidentiality, HIPAA, professionalism of behavior, and etc. You will also need to fill this out and date it.
We're making the assumption that is part of your training before getting here. Other than being a respite worker, well, I don't know.
Behavioral interventionist?
We don't do respite through this program, that's right. That you will have had some training on ethics and have reviewed your ethics as part of either your bachelor's degree or your training to become an HI worker or a CBS worker. So we don't go super in depth on that one.
And speaking of that, during the onboarding process, you will be receiving a form of a continuing education unit form. And with that being said, you will need to go onto the Affirm website, which I will demonstrate, which is affirm.fgu.edu. That is the Medicaid approved website that is free and you do not have to pay, but it talked about every single evidence-based treatment modalities that we use to implement with our clients in order to help empower their society. And you will have to do all the current ones all the way up to what we have our list. It needs to be in your file just because when we do get audited, the auditors do want to see that you have been trained for this position.
Additionally, we do have a Relias website that provides some other ethics and other training that can be accessed.
We also have some note training for like how you need to implement your practice, evidence-based treatment modality practice while you are working with your client, we will provide you samples of these worksheets. And in doing so, this is just one of the examples that we have for a training log. You can read this over. This is your copy to keep. Another one that we have is that I created a evidence-based practice treatment modality guideline with a brief definition of every evidence-based practice that is on that Affirm website. It's for your guide. This is your copy to keep. This will help you figure out what prompt level that you need to and what you can use for while you are working with your client. This is a very good informational guide for you to keep while working with your client. This is a prompt key. This is also for you to keep. This is the amount of prompt that will be listed in their goals of implementation plan, also known as PIP. This is the prompt level. So the first prompt level is no prompting, which is independent. The second prompt level is indirect prompting, which is an open-ended question. A direct verbal prompt is more firm, and it's usually when you state their name and ask them to do the prompt. A gestural prompt is body movement only with no verbal instructions. Model prompt is where you show them and they have to copy you. Partial physical is a partial hand assistant. Jim, can you please be my volunteer for a second?
Yes.
Can I have you do this real fast? A partial physical prompt is that you help them hand prompt with very little movement. A full physical prompt is the last one, and it's where you fully physically prompt them to put their hand on the elbow or take it off by using both hands. That's what that is.
There we go.
Go back. Now, it is required for you to have a CPR and First Aid before you even start working with the client. We do not pay for this. However, good news is that this is an online website that only charges $16, and you will be able to make it up within your first hour as you start working. This is the CPR website that you go to for both CPR and First Aid. Again, it is required that you do both courses of CPR and First Aid. This is through the nationalcprfoundation.com. And please know that this CPR certificate is good for 3 years. You only have to pay this $16 one time for the first time you sign up, and after the 3 years is expired, it goes down less. Down to $12 or $10 and etc.
If you already are CPR and First Aid certified, when you come, you can let us know and provide the certificate and then not have to do that step.
Awesome. If you are a community-based support worker where you are specifically working with a client out in the community, it is required for you to spend $10 to get this certificate. Again, you cannot work without this certificate with the client. It is mandatory, and Medicaid and Health Department of Health and Welfare require this course. This is the HS certificate course that you do need to take a part of. We do not pay for the $10, but again, as I remind you, this will be made up within the first 2 hours of when you do work with the additional clients. This certificate is based out of the University of Idaho College, and Medicaid has made this state mandated to where every CBS worker has to have this certificate. Now, for the behavioral intervention position or the habilitative skills technician position, there is a difference. A behavioral intervention position is where if you are grandfathered and you already have the certificate, which is formerly known as the habilitative intervention certificate, you do not need to worry about taking any other classes. It used to be where you would have to pay $900 for these classes, but now, good news is that as of last summer on July 1st, they have made that to where you no longer need to have that as a requirement. You just need to have a social degree in a human service related field. Basically social work, sociology, education, psychology, counseling, and etc. Anything that is human service related with a bachelor's at least. And you do have to have a qualification of working 1,040 hours with these clients in order to become a behavioral interventionist. Now, for a habilitative skill technician, that is basically you have a bachelor's degree, but you do not have the experience of working with this client. Do not worry. We will still accept you and we will still work with you. It is our goal to help you be supervised during the 1,040 hours weekly while you work with these clients, and we help you provide feedback. And after that, after you get the 1,040 hours, you have the opportunity to become a behavioral interventionist.
Great.
Now, when you come on board with us, we are currently in the process of transferring everything to electronic forms. And right now, you will be set up a CUNA Empower email. That is usually the first full name of your first name and the first letter of your last name at CUNAempower.com. When this will be set up, you will need to change your password and accept everything that in order to access everything that is required on the Google account in order to access your email. You will receive a Google Team email asking for that Nicole Bouvier had asked to request access for your calendar. You need to accept that request and invite me into the calendar request so that way I know when you are scheduled and when not to book you regarding into client for that week. And for that information, you do also have to fill out an availability schedule for the big boss, Dawn, for her to look over and see how many hours that you are available to work so she can assign you a certain amount of caseload of what you are requesting.
Just a note, it will say your name and then at CUNAempower.com. That is a Google account, a Gmail account. It's a Google Suite, which is a higher level of security and stuff like that. But it will act just the same as any regular Google account. And you'll use Gmail account just the same.
Okay. All right, the next thing we are going to talk about is the employee non-disclosure and non-solicitation agreement. This is basically a form that you have to sign, basically saying that you're not going to solicitate or try to convince others to join other companies or take an offer caseload. Jim, can you please explain this a little bit more? And it also talked about respect for confidentiality as well.
I haven't seen that form, but I'm making the assumption that it's essentially the idea that when you begin services, you'll be working with clients that are DD clients, and as a social service, they have HIPAA rights and rules and stuff like that. So confidentiality will be extremely strict, and that includes sharing that information with others or other businesses and stuff like that. It also, it looks like it's talking about here, there is business information that's proprietary, I guess is how you would say it, of how handbooks and policy procedure manuals and forms and stuff that would be proprietary to CUNA Counseling Center that you wouldn't be sharing with other businesses without express permission.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks. You're good.
The next thing is that you will be signing your job description. You will be given a paper that either says habilitative support, that's what it was formerly known as, which is now currently known as community-based support, or habilitative interventionist, which is now currently known as behavioral interventionist, or a habilitative skills technician form. You will need to read over this, and you will need to sign on the second page in front of a supervisor if possible. Now, it is mandatory that we do a vehicle safety statement. It used to be where agencies would not have to do a vehicle inspection. But now that Medicaid had changed the law through the developmental disability and the ADAPA rules have changed, it is required for every agency to go out and inspect the vehicle to make sure that these things are
safe
in place. And so, in doing so, a supervisor will be out with you to making sure that all lights and turn signals are working. The overall appearance, both inside and outside, look good, and they are safe, and there are no dangerous or hazardous materials that would actually harm the client showing. The tires are properly inflated. Now, we won't be checking the baldness of your tires, as I know that some agencies have done that, but we just want to make sure that your tires are properly inflated and that there is no flat tire. And we want to make sure that all seatbelts work properly and that there is nothing jammed or anything like that. You will need to initial, so you will need to put your name right here, and then you will need to initial all the way down to here. This bottom part is for the supervisor to sign. This is where the supervisor has to initial, and then you will need to sign that and date when the vehicle inspection has happened. So going back to the note training interventionist, as we talked about that prior, we have made some more samples for you. We have given you guidelines of what you need to use and how it needs to be done. This is basically this is a broad, informative paper of how to fill out a data information sheet. As for community-based support logs, as you can see, you will need to write down the participant's name, the date, the time in, and the time out. Let me just explain to you about how the time works. The time is billable time, and it is billable by 15-minute increment. That means there are a total 4 units in 1 hour. So there are 4 15-minute increments. You need to keep that in mind when you work with the time. Now, in order to bill at 3 p.m., you have to be with the client from 3 p.m. to 3:07 p.m. Anything after 3:07 p.m. goes to the next billing increment, which is 3:15. That is required by Medicaid.
Let me explain just a little. Yeah, everything works on a 15-minute increment, but Medicaid considers I am only billable for that 15 minutes when I've crossed the halfway point. So if I've been with a client for 8 minutes, I can bill for 15 minutes. Then you go all the way to 15 plus 7. 15 plus 7 is 22. So actually from 8 minutes to 22 minutes is considered the first 15-minute increment. Once I get 15 plus 8, which is 23, I go into the 30-minute increment. So if I've been with a client 23 minutes, it's 30-minute increment. And that goes all the way to 30 plus 7. That's still within that 30-minute increment. Once I've been with a client 30 plus 8 more, which is 38, that goes into the 45-minute increment. Hopefully that makes sense how it goes. So 38 to 52 would be 45 minutes, and then 53 minutes to 1 hour and 7 minutes is the hour. So think of it that way. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Jim. You will need to write down your support staff. Even though it said to write down your name, it is mandatory that you write down your credential as well. If you are a CBS worker, you are a CBS. If you are a BI, it is mandatory that you write down the credential of your college degree, and BI is also known as interventionist specialist. If you have a master's degree, put MA or MS along with IP. It's known as intervention professional. For the CBS, and then we write down the unit billed. You write down, as we just talked about, the 15-minute increment. You need to make sure that you count all the units that you have used. You need to write down the total amount of billing units that you have used. For instance, if you work with the client for 3 hours, that is a total of 12 units. If you work with the client for 2 hours, that is a total of 8 units. If you work with the client for 1 hour, that's a total of 4 units, and so on. For the CBS, you will have goals. You will need to write that out, or they might be typed out for you. It is mandatory that you run each and every one of these goals before the end of the day. And then right here on location, you need to write down the time of where you were actually at this location place. Then you need to write down the specific place. Now, we've had people in the past that write down computer games or at the home. Those are not the places that we want to see. CBS, they're not required to provide services at the home unless instructed by Health and Welfare due to the COVID situation or otherwise noted. And computer games are not considered as a location. They are not even allowed to use videos, computer games, unless it's used for a reward token that is implemented and stated into their IP. Then at the bottom of this, you need to write the summary of the description of this. And for this, you need to be able to include the goals, the activities that you have done, the participant's progress, the behaviors, the barriers, if the client has backed out, and how did you redirect this client to be able to decrease that behavior. Then at the bottom, you will sign where it said your signature is signature and credential. Again, for this CBS, you would write your name and then you would write CBS. If you have a college degree while you're working as a CBS, you will write the college degree as well. And then you will date it. It is mandatory that you have the parent sign. If you do not get the parent signature on that date, then it shows us that you did not specifically work with the client on that date. Make sure that you get the signature of the parent and the date from the parent. And the weekly, you need to fill these out at the CBS. You need to fill this out every time you work with the client. And you must make several copies and write it all out. And you must turn it in weekly. The mandatory requirement weekly is Dawn wants it, all of her timesheets and all the notes in her box by no later than midnight at Sunday. When it comes Monday at 12:01 a.m., she expects it to be in the box. Again, the key works for every door of this building. You should not have any problem getting this in on time. Now, for
I need to note that we're going over a lot of requirements, and there are a lot of requirements, but you'll have a lot of support. There'll be a lot of training. You'll have Dawn, you'll have Nikki, you'll have me and others guiding you along the way. There is plenty of support, so don't feel overwhelmed as you listen to this. There'll be enough training and support to help you complete all the things you need to do.
I thought there was a sample for intervention. Sure. Want this? I have to be right back. I'm going to grab a sample.
Oh, I'll give a welcome message while you're gone.
Huh?
I'll give a welcome message while you're gone.
Okay, sounds good. I'll be right back.
I just thought I'd take a moment to welcome you here at CUNA Counseling Center. I think it's said best in our motto, or our mission statement, however you want to say it. Our mission statement is empowering people to make positive change. All our actions are guided by love as we achieve this purpose. As you join CUNA Counseling Center in the DD program, you'll be working with children primarily, and you'll have a great opportunity to make an impact in their lives and help a lot of them in a lot of areas of their life. So I hope that you feel that desire is what's motivating you to take this job and to work with children, is a desire to be a positive part of their life, to help them, to empower them, to be something that's good in their life. That's our mission here at CUNA Counseling Center. And we want, as a center, also to be part of that. I hope you see that your fellow employees, co-workers, your upline are all there to help you. And we want you to enjoy your work here at CUNA Counseling Center. Thanks. Pretty good impromptu speech. Just kidding. I'll pause the video for a second while we wait for her then. Okay, we're back. This is probably a good model for you, that we're going to send you this video along with the paperwork, and you're welcome to just pause it every time you go through a sheet or go back or whatever and stuff. So back to you, Nikki.
Thank you, Jim. So now we are going to talk about, for those people who are either a rehabilitative skills technician or a behavioral interventionist or a behavioral professional or interventionist professional.
Yep.
Sorry.
Doing good.
So this is basically a guideline into how you need to fill out this notes for when you do work with the client. Now, please understand, the notes, when you take the data, it is more intense than the CBS worker. You will need to fill out more paperwork. So, in speaking of that, if you are working daily with a client at the behavior interventionist or rehabilitative skills technician, you will need to fill out this paper. This is an example of what a paper should look like. The participant name, the date, the time in, the time out, your name, credentials, the units, and you need to write down BI or ESPDT. Now let me explain to you. For the ESPDT, that is only if they have a request of extra hours. Now, since they have changed the law on that, we don't see ESPDT very often. You are most likely need to write down just BI. So here, then it will say go 1, go 2, go 3, go 4, go 5, and go 6. Right here on the top in that very small margin right here, you need to write down the basic PIP goal. Like, for instance, if it is a task analysis goal, put down task. If it is a communication goal, put down commune. COMM. If it a hygiene goal, put down whatever, like teeth or hair, just one word. Then right here it says comments. You don't need to necessarily fill this out unless you think we need to know about something. And right here, it says location. You need to, again, put down the place of where you provided the service. This is time. You need to write down every 15-minute increment. Now, please be aware, for 12 units on the time, for 3 hours, you need to put down 2:30 and you go all the way down to 5:15. Again, if you put down to 5:30, you are billing for the extra increment. It needs to match up 12 units, which is a total of 3 hours. And to you on the paper, it might look confusing because it looks like you are not billing as you write down for 5:30. But according to Medicaid, 5:30, when you end at 5:30, that is actually the last increment is at 5:15. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like 5:15 to 5:30 would be the last increment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you're putting the start time.
All right. So here, again, going back to the prompt key, and depending on the implementation plan of what their level of prompting they need to have, it's either going to be a plus or minus for that. You need to write down the plus or minus form, as you can see, with the prompt level. As you can see on this one, there is a prompt level of indirect verbal, or independent, which is I, or direct verbal.
Keep going.
Direct verbal or 3 direct verbals, which is the minus. You need to make sure that these are correctly dated according to their implementation plan. Now, at the bottom of this, you need to put the summary of the plan. If it is anywhere over 2 hours of services, you need to write down a more descriptive summary. And then in this description, you need to talk about the PIP goal, the objective of each goal, the behaviors of what they demonstrated, and the prompt level that you used. And feel free, this is all on one page right here. You can feel free to write on the back of the page right here, which is on this second page right here. So if you need to continue to write, feel free to use the back page. But the longer the summary is, the more information we have to write the report for the 6-month and the annual report that they are due to submit to Telegen or Medicaid for progress in their progress notes.
Making a note.
Now, there are some clients that need interdisciplinary training. Now, this is where you, as the behavioral interventionist, or for the most part, just the behavioral interventionist, it is not allowed for rehabilitative skills technicians to provide these trainings as of yet. But they are currently trying to work and change that rule to where a rehabilitative skills technician can provide that services. Now, this is where you go with the client to the specific therapy or medical appointment. Anything that counts is speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, even doctor's appointment, and even counseling appointments. And if that's the case, you will need, if you have to provide more than 1 hour of interdisciplinary training with different therapists, which most of our clients need, you will need to fill out a separate one of these for every therapist you have. Now, for this is basically a summary of what happened. You just give the basic report of what the client have done, why you need to intervene. A lot of times you're just a flower in the pot and you just sit and watch them for the full hour. But there are sometimes when they demonstrate that they need elopement, such as running off, or if they are hitting the therapist or pulling their hair, that's when you need to intervene and step in and be like, okay, that's not appropriate, and redirect the behavior. So here you put down the participant's name, the provider, that's you, and the credential, the unit billed, the date and the time, in and time out. Then you need to check off one of this. If it does not list like counseling or doctor, this is what you will need to write. You will need to write a box that says other, check it, and then write down counseling or doctor appointment. And then at the bottom, it is mandatory that you provide your signature on top with your date and your credentials. It is also important that you get the parental signature as well. You do not need the therapist signature. You have to get the parent signature on that and the date. And in your summary, you need to also write down 2 mandatory things in there. You need to say that you have provided feedback to the therapist on how to help improve the therapy in general with the client, and addressed any concerns and answered any questions that were being asked.
I might be a little gentle on that because I imagine most MD doctors or therapists aren't going to be super excited about a lot of feedback from you. They assume they're higher licensure. But you could say, hey, I really appreciated this, and I really liked how you did this, and I appreciated that you maybe reviewed his medications or something with him. That would be just a thought.
Yeah. Then, also, we're not done with completing all the papers. As we go back to the data information for the daily data information of each session, it says total. You need to write down a fraction of the fraction is the fraction of the goal, which is the denominator, which is the total. So if you ran 7 trials, you need to put down 7 as the denominator. Then you need to, the numerator is all the pluses. So you need to count all the pluses in every trial, and then you need to put down, for instance, in this case, this is 4 out of 7. And then you divide that and you get your percentage. The percentage is what goes on this monthly form here that we have to provide to Medicaid. This is the graphing form. We not only have to fill this out monthly, it also has to be submitted to us monthly because we have to turn this in to Medicaid. This shows the graphing part and the progress of the client. So here, you keep this for a full month. You write down the date that you work with them, the service, which is BI, the time in, time out, the total, which is the pluses and the total of the whole trial. Then you write down the percentage. You can fill out the comment, but it's not mandatory. Or you can leave that blank. But you have to sign every single session that you've worked with for every single graphing. Then you come to the graphing part, which is that you write down the participant's name and the participant's goal right here. Then you put down on the side month and the year. Then you will go down and you will graph. For instance, for this one, it's for July. So you put 7/2, the date on every line, and then you go down to your best of your ability and put a little dot. When this looks to be full, you will use a ruler and draw a line to connect all the dots. You should have a line graph by the end of the month. Any questions, Jim?
Fabulous stuff.
Okay. So, if you have any questions or concerns in filling out the paperwork, please do not hesitate to get a hold of one of the supervisors. Currently, our supervisor is Dawn. She is the head of the program. Jim's the owner, but he does not do all the paperwork. He just oversees the whole program. I'm the lady who does most of the paperwork, almost all of it. My name is Nikki. And then we also have another supervisor who is currently on board who is specifically working with staff, but he's also working with clients, and his name is Lonnie.
Is that it?
Huh?
Are we done?
No.
Oh. Good. Just checking for you all.
We're almost done. A lot of information, I know.
Good information.
Okay. Let's talk about scheduling real fast. Now, most agencies create the schedule for you. We do not like that. It is your responsibility. once you are given the caseload, it's your responsibility to contact the client's parent within 1 to 2 days, and you create your schedule. Again, you will be receiving an email, and you will need to update your schedule onto your calendar electronically through the Google Calendar. This gives you the instructions of what you need to do in order to start with your client. I suggest you follow this really closely and create a schedule with the client. Most parents do not like cancellation, and they definitely love consistency. So that's what they are striving for when it comes with the success of their child. And as of right now, we are currently doing staff online for the staff timesheet. As of right now, we're still in the process of trying to transfer all this over. I will provide another video sometime today, and I will show you how to do that as well. So that makes, when you go into the Dropbox, you will be able to do your timesheet correctly. That is a whole nother process. And that is it. Thank you for this time, and we welcome you to the team, and thank you for being on board with us, and we definitely look forward, and we are very excited to have you. Thank you.
Agreed. We're excited to have you. Welcome to the team.